Hello there, this is Jasmine, aka Gladiator in Sweats, and I'm here with the full moon in Capricorn reading. The way I'm actually going to do this is record the notes that I took on the transits, just any notes that I have written down about the full moon, and then we'll go into the tarot spread afterwards. So let's just jump in. First, I want to thank you for watching, those that are new as well as returning, and I'm just so appreciative for the love. So I just want to say that first and foremost. So just gonna jump right in. So I'm recording this a little bit late. It's Saturday as of this recording, and we had the full moon on Wednesday, Thursday, depending on where you live. And so I'm just going to talk a little bit about the transits, like I said. Obviously, right now we're in Cancer season, so Sun is in Cancer, and the Moon was in Capricorn. And so I want to read a little bit of notes about the particular degrees that the Sun and Moon were at. Obviously, they're opposing each other, so we're at 6 degrees Cancer, 6 degrees Capricorn, with the Sun and Moon respectively. And so I cannot remember his name. I believe his name is Elias. There's a book that he has on the Chandra symbols, on like a description of every degree on the like astrological chart or circle, if you will. And so the description at each degree kind of describing the energy at that point. And so I wanted to just kind of talk about both of those. So I wanted to actually talk a little bit first about the Sun, where the Sun was at, because I feel like that's very much descriptive of the energy that we've been in before and after this full moon. So at 6 degrees of Cancer, it says, the Medusa's head with writhing snakes for hair. Karma is frequently anticipated and anxiously dreaded. We know we must confront whatever we have given power to that haunts us. Ancestors, collective undertows, personal mistakes of the past, everything comes due. And so there must be the utmost honesty and integrity, dedication and perseverance, to cut right through the gathering storm clouds and rescue or redeem what is essential, what is vital. When karma is this palpable and heavy duty, the only skillful means is to cultivate a life-giving perspective and to inject all of the negativity with this elixir until there's nothing further to worry about. Because you have become forward-looking enough to turn any past around and to make any darkness luminous from within, and to be able to walk on. I feel like that that's descriptive of the energy of like what we're aware of for the full moon. But I feel like even this past week, that leading up into the full moon, even leading out, we've been very aware, or at least for myself, and I feel like maybe this is resonant with others, where we're becoming aware, very aware of how our actions are directly changing and affecting the way things happen, which that's not anything necessarily new. We all know that every action causes an equal and opposite reaction, but we're seeing it in a much more deeper context. I feel as if we're really starting to see how the loops, we're seeing the patterns. I feel like we're starting to see the emotional loops, the loops that we fall into because we keep falling into the same behaviors and the same actions and reactions and the way of handling things. Even as I mentioned, the things that haunt us, not only just personal mistakes, but I'm reading from my notes here, but collective undertows. That is what I feel is really heavy, of the collective karma that has been created outside of just our individual karma. We've been having to acknowledge and really deal with the collective energy that we have created, and I mean every single one of us. We're all a part of this, and so it all starts with at least one of us. It all starts with us. And so even with like the collective things with like toxic masculinity, and I bring up the masculinity, because we have Mars in retrograde now. So we're also having to take a look at our aggression, the ways in which we maybe don't assert our will well enough or strong enough, or maybe the ways in which we do, maybe the ways in which we abuse or misuse our power, or just not use our power well enough at all. Even those sorts of collective issues coming to the fore. Everything comes due. I feel like that part is really strong, with this moon having being conjunct Saturn, and as well as a lot of other planetary placements that I will mention. There's just a lot of really interesting things that I look at when I look at this chart, and I just start to see the different energies and how they're starting to play out. So I'm going to go ahead and also read 6 degrees at Capricorn, where the actual moon was, and then I'll go into some more of my notes, and then we'll get into the tarot spread. So this video is going to be a little bit lengthy, just because there's a lot of notes. Even the fact that I'm doing this a little bit late this week was really, really intense. I feel very serious. And so I'm going to go ahead and read the moon placement. I kind of consider this being the more unknown, the more psychological things that are happening. And this one is an ancient gold scarab lying in the sand. Ancient wisdom can be miniaturized, essentialized, stripped down to fit within changed worlds. The quintessential ability to realize and recognize what's important and what counts, what is vitally relevant, what must be kept in mind, discerning judiciously what is livable truth and how the mysteries play out in the material world. You are so stark and spare that the cosmic overtones are turned out and the practical applications are turned in. The expression becomes more worldly and pragmatic. But inside of everything, the code behind world phenomena is being held in view. Law, ethic, principle, and high standards. Being a representative of the priestly caste of old and modern dress. And most of all, knowing how to handle yourself impeccably. So there's a few things that really catch my ear, or just my eye, in that paragraph. I mean, just the first part about kind of just being stripped down to bare bones. That's kind of the feeling that I've been getting really strongly about, just peeling back the layers, peeling it back to what really matters, what actually matters. Does it? And I don't want to say things like, obviously, things like race or gender or sexual orientation. All these things don't matter. Those things do play a part, but it's like really stripping past all of these layers of persona, all these layers that kind of add to our story. But like, if we just kind of get outside of our mind and we get outside of what the story is supposed to be, like what is our essence, like even what it says about ancient wisdom being miniaturized, essentialized, stripped down. And so I feel like we're being stripped down in order to really be able to pull only what is really, really necessary and important to us as far as who we are. Is it important that I carry burdens of the past into the future? For me personally, no. And I feel like that resonates for most everyone as we're really closing out a lot of these karmic cycles, as we're starting to really come full circle, I feel, about a lot of our own personal different life lessons. For many of us, I feel like lessons around power, around control, around emotional maturity, as well as emotional manipulation, just energy manipulation in general, and how we can get warped into believing things are a certain way when they're really not. Just all of this. And this part about here we are. But inside of everything, the code behind world phenomena is being held in view. So inside everything, it's like the real reason why we do things, like being very pragmatic. And even when it means worldly, I think of more universally, not necessarily just on this planet. I think of, I think of really going deep inside. when it even mentions about law, ethic, principle, high standards, I think of universal law. I'm not thinking about like this nation's laws or this world's laws. I'm kind of thinking universal law. I'm thinking more on a bigger scale, on a more multi-dimensional level of realizing the principles of how energy in general works, and taking back ourselves, taking back our power. A lot of things that have come up, like soul retrieval, of retrieving parts of ourselves that either we buried or gave away or threw away, things like that. Another few things that I wrote down in particular with the moon and the sun is we had sort of this kite formation with the moon at the tail and sun at the top, and on the two wings we had Uranus and the vertex, which the vertex is a fictional point, but anytime the vertex does get included in some of these like figures, like in a chart, whether it's in a grand trine or what have you, I just see that as like very fateful events being triggered. And with this being with Uranus, I'm definitely seeing this as like bursts of lightning, inspiration. I'm seeing it as in like lightning striking the ground, almost like the Tower card, really, like where lightning is striking the foundation, shaking what does not fit, what does not stick, what is not of quality, what does not actually matter, gets shaken off to fall away, or shaken off to show the truth, show the livable truth. See it as also there's just physical transformation and crystallization of what really matters to us, and of our truth, and of our power really coming into these physical changes, I feel, in our life. So there's a few other notes that I wanted to mention. There's Trans-Saturnian planets, which would be planets outside of Saturn or past Saturn. So that would automatically be the planets that we already know of, like Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. Is Pluto considered a planet in the science community anymore? I'm not sure. It's a planet to me regardless. So so those would be trans-Saturnian. There's trans-Neptunian planets that are outside of Neptune, and again, we may not even really refer to these as planets because they're small. They're not as big as other planets. Even the fact that Pluto gets knocked off as a planet, these planets are even smaller. So we don't really consider these planets, and we don't really pay too much attention to them on like the very basic level of astrology. But Neptune is retrograde, and not just that, but a lot of these trans-Neptunian planets are also conjunct personal planets right now. So I wanted to actually talk a little bit about that. We have currently the sun in together with Hades and Kronos, and I want to talk a little bit about both of those planets and or gods, deities, talk about the mythology behind those energies just a little bit, because I don't want to go too far into it so where this gets a little bit off track. But first we have Hades that ends up conjunct the sun. Sun transits Hades and then eventually transits Kronos. Both of these are, I believe, within degrees of each other. There's like a 3-degree orb between both Hades and Kronos. So just to talk about Kronos, Kronos is all things high up, all things literally and figuratively, as far as like authority, illumination. It's if we even just talk about the mythology, Kronos is fathered by Uranus and Gaia. So even with Uranus and Taurus right now, and these energies kind of being activated at this time, is not coincidental. Kronos was actually fathered by Uranus. There's this family curse where Uranus always knew that he was going to have his power usurped from by his children. in order for him to try and keep that from happening, he pretty much just stepped on any bit of confidence that his children had. Kind of something that I feel is a relevant common psychological theme within generations, even in this like present reality, where there's this very egoic feeling between generations, where like an older generation almost doesn't want the next generation to come and take their power, or they feel like them coming and or they look at them, the new generation coming into their power, as them losing power, like as if there really has to be like a quote unquote loss of power. But regardless, just going more into this, so Uranus stepped on all his kids' confidence, didn't really allow for them to have a very, if you want to even look at it chakra wise, he was stepping all over the root chakras, right? So Kronos does eventually grow up and develops a strong self-reliance and personal authority in himself, despite this, and partially due to this, because that was focused on him, where he didn't really feel like he got to kind of stand in his light. That kind of became his focus, to stand in his light. And not just in doing that, but he kind of ended up taking a vengeful streak because of what happened. And so he ends up castrating his dad, obviously, kind of inflicting the same kind of pain his father did upon him. So the same way that he feels like maybe his masculinity or his power, when we talk about masculine energy, we're talking about the action, the outward, the yang energy. And so I see that as him, when castrating his father, as him kind of symbolically trying to say, I'm taking your power. The way that you took my power, I'm taking my power back. So something that Kronos ends up doing in his own life with his own kids, so he ends up realizing he's got the same issue where his kids are going to end up taking his power too. And so ultimately, I don't see it as a curse. This is just a part of the cycles where you don't stay in power forever. And so I feel that Uranus and Kronos is just, they're just that feeling of the higher ups just kind of wanting to hold on to that higher up. When it's in a more negative vibration, it feels tyrannical. It feels like like a dictator. So he eats his kids to try and keep them from taking his power. He tries to do something similar to what his father did. And so one child ends up getting away, or not really getting away, but one child is taken away before he's able to eat him, and that's Zeus. And Zeus is taken away so that, long story short, he is able to come of age and go about getting Kronos to essentially purge the kids, purge the kids out of his body so that they're able to overthrow Kronos, all the kids together with Zeus. And so I see this as metaphorical for Kronos being like the overlooker, the authority that is overseeing this entrance into the golden age. But like I said, it can get corrupted and be tyrannical. Kronos is all about integrity, independence, even about, like I said, about the higher up, about government. And so there's Kronos, and so then we have Hades, which very well known. I don't feel like I have to really go into this too much, but then we have Hades, who rules the underworld of the dead, all things dead. So we're not talking just very physical and a very in their body, or like the body is dead way, but we're also talking about things that are not living, things that don't have the light shown on them, like things that are not in our awareness. This energy operates very primal, very egoic. It often operates in circumstances that have originated when we're very young, that originate even before this lifetime. That's kind of like the carrying of the shadow that we kind of, I don't want to say like we bring into us in this life, but we kind of do. But not even just that, even if you don't, you know, the first, even just first 2 years of your life are very, very important. And they say even things as small as like falling off the couch, all of these little things that happen to babies, they say that these are imprints that imprint on their emotional and their etheric bodies. And so as psychologists know, those that just work in the therapy or just the psychological realm of things are aware of how we tend to end up spending the rest of our lives kind of unpacking this energy and unpacking, you know, this kind of shadow persona that we end up creating. So so that's what I want to mention, that some part of us has to transmute, has to be faced in order to integrate. You know, on a psychological level, this can often means that we have to break down to end up building up even better, even stronger, even more healthily. Even the Hades energy you can refer this to like the Scorpio or the Pluto kind of energy, having to do with like the gut. You know, where ignoring the gut or even ignoring the intuition leads to physical issues and manifestations. So let's see. So yeah, all to say, with this Hades and Chronos energy right here with the sun, all of this in Cancer, I see this just, you know, Cancer being like the yin yang kind of energy, or of wanting to like nurture the emotional self. It is like very sensitive. It's the crab. And so even in this relating to like the Hades, you could see this as like the crab layer or the shell kind of being shed, and then there's just this very vulnerable, very sensitive, very uncomfortable, like us having to deal with, and not just us, but that Hades energy coming through of our shadow aspects, the parts of ourselves we don't accept or have not acknowledged, or the parts of us that we believe are wrong or unnecessary, or just keep us from being quote unquote good people. All of that coming to the surface to be integrated, to be dealt with, so we can really see what's at the root of what keeps us from being completely vulnerable. And really that's fear, you know, fear of being hurt, of being harmed. And not just being hurt and harmed, but fear of not being able to come back from that pain. And I don't think it's so much about being afraid of pain, but I think what's fearful is the idea of being hurt and not being able to return to some sense of safetyness, or feeling as if that sense of safety, that nest, is too far away, and that we're just in this sea of desperation or of depression, of just very maybe negative energies. Video cut off on me. All right, so the last thing I wanted to mention about Hades and Chronos, I want to show these two symbols right here. This one above is Chronos, and this one is Hades. If you notice, they're not too pretty there, but if you notice, there's the cross and then there's like the crescent moon, and they both have this symbol. And so the cross tends to be like symbolic of matter, of physical and emotional matters, with that moon being there, especially with the cross and like the crescent moon here in Hades. The way that I'm looking at that is like where our emotions start to penetrate. Even like I kind of like to see where it kind of crosses over the root, you know, over the very bottom of the cross. And so you can even see this as relative to, you know, when we have to acknowledge our emotions and how that does affect us. Acknowledge the good and the bad energies. And then Chronos, you see this as like a protection of what matters. Protection of, just protection of what matters. And so with this together, I see this again as dealing with the issues that have been kind of breaking us down from the inside out, to really, like I've been mentioning, integrate these shadow aspects, accepting our insecurities, of not necessarily having to love our insecurities, but like accepting them and seeing the truth behind them, seeing maybe the blessing behind them sometimes. There's a lot of notes that I took down. Like I have a few more pages, or really just like 2 more pages. But we also had the moon. I mentioned how the moon was conjunct Saturn, but it was also conjunct the part of cross, I believe it's called. In Arabian astrology, I believe they have parts, like the part of fortune, part of marriage, these points that are calculated with the different planetary placements to be able to kind of see like where in your chart would you have like an extra boost in a certain area. And so with this being conjunct the part of cross, which is actually calculated with descendant Mars and Saturn. So again, there is this mention of Mars and Saturn, of this like Martian energy going against this Capricorn energy. And so it's very fire and earth, very much transformational, about alchemy, about what really matters. What really matters. And so if we want to bring this kind of all together with the sun, together with Hades and Kronos, where you're kind of battling with the parts of you that keep you from being your truest self, that keep you from being your highest self. And then which is opposite the moon, which is having you really face what actually matters, what is important, what is important in the long run, as far as like you can even look as far as in the long run of your own lifetime, but even outside of yours, lifetimes past yours, generations, what really matters for the generations, what matters for this planet, what matters for all of us. There's a few more things, and then I'll go ahead and end this, and then we'll get into the transits, or the tarot. So another thing I wanted to mention was Mercury. Mercury moved into Leo, I believe a couple days ago, or maybe it was yesterday. But either way, it's also transiting Vulcan, or Vulcanus. I believe that's the way you pronounce it, which is another trans-Neptunian planet. So we've discussed Hades, Kronos, and now we're discussing Vulcanus. Vulcanus is a child of Zeus and Hera. They were actually deformed at birth, and so they were tossed into the sea, where sea nymphs rescued him and, took care of him, but also taught him so much, taught him so many very important skills, as well as other skills he's able to use. And so using his own, fire energy, and he learns from the sea nymphs. And so I see this as, he becomes a smithing god, ultimately. He represents very masculine energy. It's thought that, any tool or weapon or what have you that's created for the gods is created by him. And so this is represented, it represents very masculine, very yang, powerful energy, great strength, brute force, vitality. It's just very, very, very masculine and recuperative, like regenerative power. I did not draw the symbol in my notebook to show you, but it really looks like a volcano. It looks like a big triangle with a smaller triangle on top of it. And so it's just very massive energy potential, whether it goes, in a quote-unquote good way, or whether it goes in quote-unquote bad way, where it creates brutality or violence, dependent upon the conductor, right? And so, sorry, just looking at the notes here. And so I see this in being in Leo, I see this just as like a crazy just boost of confidence, like boost of confidence, boost of fire, boost of strength, boost of courage. Not necessarily to where like we are so like fearless. It can be like, we're so courageous to where now we're fearless, but I feel it's more like where we're really in a state of being aware of, the things that we may be slightly fearful of, or the things that kind of, the things that we're going up against, right? But it's like this boost of energy that's like, I can do this anyway. I can shine on anyway. Or that, if they're gonna be a fire, I'm gonna come, just as hot, or I'm gonna come in hotter. And so I see this again, boost of confidence, boost of our mental, like our mental confidence of knowing we can do it, of being able to swing our sword if we got to. I mean, I can see this as creating a lot of drama, but ultimately I see this again as just like really being able to come into a lot of confidence. So particularly with air signs, since again this is Mercury, really being able for us to as our heart, you know, Venus has been in Leo, kind of getting the juice, especially from the North Node. And now we have Mercury that has been with the North Node. And now it's also together with this Vulcanist energy. So I just see it as just like getting this like, just like lighting, like turning on your stove. I'm just lighting a match and then letting the bonfire kind of go. The few last things I wanted to mention, we have Jupiter together with Poseidon and Scorpio. So, so we've got Poseidon, the god of the sea, right? God of the sea, even of like earthquakes, known to be also of horses. He's often depicted with like a horse, sometimes a dolphin or a ram. But he's in a chariot, right? He's often seen in a chariot, and often accidentally or maybe purposely drowning people in his wake. You know, where he travels, where he goes. And so I see this, well, not just see this, with Poseidon kind of being this representative of enlightenment, of wisdom, of transparency, where, as I've mentioned before, where I feel like all of this, like, emotional energy is just kind of like flushing our true emotions to the surface and flushing our wounds to the surface too. I just see it almost like antiseptic and going in a wound and just kind of flushing it all out to kind of kill the bacteria. I'm seeing it that way, as if you even want to see, like, I don't want to say ourselves as like big giant wounds, but if you wanted to look at ourselves that way and being washed of you know, the dirt and the garbage, the quote-unquote Hades energy, to be able to purify ourselves, to kind of reach that transparency of spirit of who we really are, you know. Oh, and also, this is also tri-Neptune and Pisces. I want to show you the Poseidon symbol right there. If you can see, it's very similar to the Pisces symbol, turn like 90 degrees. So again, with Jupiter being here in Scorpio, where I feel like Poseidon in Scorpio, like it's just the water so deep, very deep, and just like with Poseidon, they're just kind of bringing it up, like with tidal waves. And so with this having been conjunct Poseidon quite a while now, as it's been retrograde, it's just really digging stuff up. So just to kind of round this all off, because I know this was a little heavy with material, but basically I feel like the focus or the energies that are really coming in are very Neptunian, very Piscean, heavy Saturn and Pluto energy as well. So it's just really heavy trans-Saturnian, very, and when you think of Saturn being the ruler of time, so, you know, these are energies outside of time, energies outside of much of what we can conceptualize and really understand yet. And so I just really see this as just needing to focus inward, that the more I feel like we can look outward, we can get a little confused. And what I mean by outward is really as far as believing what our eyes are showing us, in a way of, in the same way that maybe many of us are like, yeah, I don't necessarily just believe the news because that's what they said. I also feel like that needs to kind of be the same attitude taken in our own personal lives and our own just like interactions with people, with things, with places, everything. Really kind of seeing everything, what every lesson is trying to show us. Even with every tiny bicker, that's just the way that I'm seeing it, especially with Neptune retrograde. It's just very deep, very mysterious, very psychological, very the same way with dreams, the same way where dreams, like the smallest details, the most random details can be notes and hints about the most grandest ideas, right? Where we can see losing teeth as like us needing to find structure in our life. That's relative to like the Capricorn energy of losing teeth, losing Capricorn energy, of losing our power, losing our foundation. So I'm seeing it in that sort of way where there's like these tiny things where us even seeing like a butterfly outside can be like unlock something or bring a thought to us that is really profound. And so yeah, I guess I'm just going to end that there with the notes, and I'm going to go ahead, switch this camera around, and we're going to go into the tarot reading. All right, so we're going to get into the full moon tarot spread. I did the Celtic cross spread, and I think I'm going to actually use the Celtic cross spread now for my monthly or the full moon lunar cycle readings, at least for now. So let's just jump into it. So bottom of the deck, I just want to mention first off is Temperance. And as y'all know, I like to pull the first three. So we have Temperance, we also have the Hierophant, and then we have the King of Swords. So I see this King of Swords as that Uranian energy. I see this as the Uranian energy that we are coming in to embody, as where you're able to just really the way that he even is like kind of above this whirlpool or this tornado of thought or mentality. I just see this as being able to see the truth, being able to speak the truth, being able to inspire, being able to even, the way that there's the dragons in the back, as I've been mentioning before, I just get this feeling of soul retrieval, of being able to retrieve like past life info, present life info. I just see it as like really being able to come into a great sense of knowledge and enlightenment about what you value, not just what you value with this Hierophant card, but about the part you play, about where you fit in all of this. Also can see this just as also shaking conformity, of really being able to switch it up, being able to decide, all right, you know what, I'm coming more into this higher self, this higher vibration of knowing, with this Temperance here being integrated, like this being integrated into who we are, so that we aren't just playing this ego persona, but we're actually being able to, the way I see it is almost like this kind of being like the body, or like anyone that has watched, like, I don't want to say Transformers, because those are like the robots that are like, they don't have anyone in them. I'm thinking of like Gundam, or anyone that's watched any like mech anime where there's like robots and they jump in the robots. So, and I see this as like this kind of being the robot, or the Merkaba, or just like the physical body, just the vehicle that we use to travel, to be able to experience this world, to be able to experience this reality. And then this almost being like a jolt, like us kind of coming into the body, like the higher self, the higher knowledge, the higher wisdom. So just jumping into it, as far as where we've been in the past, or when I consider the past, I look at like the past new moon, since it's the full moon reading. So in the past couple weeks leading up to this full moon, we have this King of Cups with this Six of Cups in reverse. So the first thing that I do think about is Cancer season. I think about not just Cancer season, but when we started to have like Mercury in Cancer, we started to have the mercurial energy, as well as now we're having the sun, we're having the awareness of our emotions. And now I get the feeling that things are very just emotional. I look at the wolf in the back and the way that like the moon calls the wolf. It's kind of instinctual. It's like automatic. And so I'm seeing this as like the full moon, but also just the Cancer season in general, just kind of, as I mentioned before, these tidal waves. I get this feeling of just every so often the waves like wash up, and we not just get wet, but we get soaked, and we get like, not like where we're drowning, but it's a struggle. Like it definitely feels very, very emotional, but not just emotional, but we're looking back, and we're emotional and sensitive, recalling past memories, being triggered to think about old memories, or maybe things that have affected us in the past, not even just in this lifetime, as I've mentioned before, with this very watery energy, but also with the trans-Neptunian energy, and just the Neptune energy of illusion, of enlightenment, of just things being very mystical and mysterious. I feel that we're getting triggered by past memories, and it's like past life recall, I feel like. But also just I see this as going back and like having to clear and close some unfinished emotional business. I, again, as y'all know, took some notes. So, and again, I wrote down soul retrieval. So I see this again, even as you can kind of see the little dragons or the birds in the back in this card. With it in reverse, I see it as us going back to really actually clear things out, to be done with it for good, honestly. And I say that also because as far as in the present and what the current issue or cross is to bear, we have the Seven of Cups in reverse. So again, another cup card, but it's also one cup above the Six, where you're in a state of where you can like, where you're feeling not just connecting with other people, but I see this as, with it being the Six, it's like the like double the Three, and the Three is of like the emotional connection. And so I see this as, like a very deep emotional connection, emotional balance. And so with the Seven of Cups here, but with both these being in reverse, I see it as not necessarily just deception, but illusion. With this Seven of Cups, with it in reverse in general, I recognize it as like kind of being deluded, or not being deluded, but like being distracted by so many other things or opportunities or connections or just emotions, just being overwhelmed with so many different emotions and not knowing how to feel about it. So in reverse, and not just in reverse, but with this cross being the Four of Wands, I see this Four of Wands of gaining not just stability, but this, I recognize this as like the integration or the union of like energies. Not just that, but see it as like grounded, stable in your own fire, in your own strength. The way that even that this dragon is kind of like wrapped around this strong pillar there in the center. I see this as really needing to almost like figure out which one of these cups is like you're finding your own emotional security and stability. Maybe this is about, looking back on the ways in which you have not been emotionally stable, or the ways in other people, or again, places, things can really get you feeling out of pocket or out of yourself. bringing us into this Knight of Swords, which I see this as going from that King of Cups to the Knight of Swords. I also see it as like moving from a very emotionally worn out place. You know, the King is, I see that as very mature, and I'm seeing this as it goes into this Knight of Swords as feeling more lighter. Not just lighter because it's air kind of moving from the water into the more like watery kind of air, the bubble. But I'm seeing this as just feeling emotionally rejuvenated, revived. And not just revived, but just looking at some notes that I did take. Yes, that's what I said. Integration of the masculine energy. So because we do have this very... this is the King of Cups, but it's the water, the feminine, the emotional realm. And maybe really needing to balance that out again with this fire, this passion, this kind of like brute force. And this also again reminds me of that Mercury in Leo, just all of the Leo energy. But I guess I'm thinking particularly with Mercury and Leo, because now that makes it the North Node, Venus, and Mercury in Leo. So we've got two personal planets with obviously a very personal point, like the nodes. Those are very, you know, karmic and faded, as some will say. So this Knight of Swords, I'm seeing this as really just being willing and able to release any emotional ties, anything that does hold you back, anything that does keep you from being able to like release and shed, being able to know what opportunities are, you know, deceptions, and which ones are the real deal. Again, with the Seven of Cups and with the Six of Cups underneath, of being able to see like which of these cups is like of the now, and what of these emotions are actually pulling from the past. Am I actually reacting in the now, or am I actually just kind of being triggered into another emotional loop? You know, this is well understood when we think about PTSD, and we think about how, you know, people can get triggered into the loops. It's understood that it's about, it's not that they're still living and actually feeling that pain or in that situation. It's that something triggers them into thinking that. And so that's what I feel here is like, we can get triggered into thinking that other people hold the power, or that we just get triggered into old ways of thinking. And we really got to cut that and cut it and really be willing to see outside of that. You know, moving from feeling emotionally worn down to feeling a sense of, again, as I mentioned, not just lightness, but of emotional and mental clarity, you know. Let's see, is there any other things I may have written down? I'll get to the last notes at the end. So we're going to go ahead into this Nine of Wands here. Nine of Wands in reverse. Moving here from this Four of Wands. If you, I'll lift this a little bit so that you're able to kind of see the direction here of these cards. Hopefully you're able to see that. Where we go from the King of Cups through the Four of Wands, over the Seven of Cups into this Nine of Wands. Into this place of, I see this as not just standing in the fire, like of persevering, but also knowing when to walk away, knowing when it's not worth it. You know, with this Nine of Wands in reverse, I see this as, you know, I don't want to say it's knowing when to quit, but just knowing when to walk away from certain paths and knowing when to walk away from certain people or certain energies. Yeah. So as we go into the you and them, or like the you and your environment, we have the Two of Cups in reverse with this Four of Swords. So with this Two of Cups, again, going back to, if you see, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, there's 5 cup cards here. So half of the spread is water energy, the rest of it is like fire and earth. And so I feel like this definitely speaks to that water trine that we have been experiencing between Neptune, Jupiter, and we felt it with Mercury, I believe, when Mercury was in Cancer. But now we can also start to feel it with the Sun in Cancer. And so there's this very deep of wanting to connect, really wanting to find not just stability, but really wanting to recalibrate, I feel, with our emotions. That's been coming up heavily this week to begin with. But then with this Four of Swords, I can kind of see this as one of two ways, to where maybe we can be a little bit too focused, where it can be maybe like too tunnel visioned, to where the way you're looking at things, you're looking at things just like one way, and maybe you want to try looking at it in a different way. But I also can just see this as things just being in a very deeply reflective state, with this being like the environment card. Excuse me. I just see this as very much like that Neptune retrograde, the trans-Neptunian energies coming through. We also have Mercury going retrograde pretty soon too, I think in the next week or so. Don't quote me on that, but pretty soon. And so I'm seeing this as this really being forced to have to take another step back, to really have to realign ourselves, reorient ourselves. And with the Four of Cups being in our hope and desires in reverse, I am seeing this as us wanting to not just make deeper connections with ourselves, deeper connections with others, just wanting to make newer connections, or maybe just new to us. We're really wanting to call in, I feel, our soul family. We're really wanting to call in our support, some real emotional support. And not just that, but just with all the four energy, because we have, again, with the Four of Cups, we have the Four of Wands. I feel like we're really just wanting to find a sense of emotional and mental, we're just really wanting to find some stability. We're really wanting to find a new, even with this Page of Coins being the outcome, a new outlook, a new way of doing things. Maybe even just seeing things in a whole new perspective that brings you into a whole new perspective of creation or creative mode, where you start to feel like maybe the possibilities are more unlimited than they seem to be prior. The other thing I noticed is just even the volcano in the back. That, again, it makes me think of that volcano energy, of this very immense energy potential to create something new. But in creating something new, even with volcanoes, there often is a need of destruction. There often is destruction of the old. Or you can just look at it as a recreation of the old and just a reshaping of the old. Yeah. Of us knowing when to stand on our power, when to walk away, and not necessarily just walk away from opportunities, but it's like walking away from opportunities that aren't even for, for our best interest. Not every opportunity that appears is good or has the best intent for you, or any of that. Having to learn a certain level of discernment. Even if you look in this page of coins, the dragon is looking with his third eye. Can't really focus, but its third eye is open. And so even there, I see this as being relative to seeing past the illusion, seeing past all of the facade, and seeing past all of like just the fake way of doing things. Or I don't want to say fake, but the way that people have, said that things have to be done, or the way that you even have to go about your life. I just see this even as yourself, like you being the new creation, you being the new. Even if you see the way like it moves from king to this Knight of Swords, where the Knight of Swords meets up with this Page of Coins. So it's like this like new physicalness. There's this new, practical way of going about things, but the Knight is like slightly more like, it's got like that teenager vibe where it's like, this is the baby, but it's got that mentality of being willing to do what it takes. Almost like a, by any means necessary. So, yeah, that's really it for the tarot spread. I actually did pull oracle cards too, so let me actually pull those out. I don't know why I had them up. I pulled 2 cards, and then we also had the bottom of the deck, which I don't really normally do, but I thought that was just really interesting that it was what it was. So, the 2 cards, we have the Golden Solar Dragon, as well as the Orange Gold Dragon from Arcturus. So just seeing it off top, very fiery, passionate cards. Very, as I said, fiery, very, of the sun, of Leo, of just like this very warm passion. So I just want to go ahead and read the bottoms of these. And let me also mention, as I wanted to, bottom of the deck, again, we have the Green Gold Dragon from Sirius. I believe I pulled this for the weekly, so I love that this came up for the full moon as well as like bottom of the deck. But not just that, as I mentioned in the weekly, of us tapping into this Syrian energy, of these Syrian downloads coming through, of us, as the card says, learning about spiritual technology and being a transmitter of sacred knowledge. And so as we go into what these cards are about, helps you stand in your masculine power with wisdom. Let your DNA be reprogrammed and light codes activated. Become an inspired leader. And then we also have for the Orange Gold Dragon, opens you to knowledge for the new golden age. Carry the energy of the future and be a guiding light. So both of these are very strong, very much about standing in your power, about courage, strength. I think of loyalty. I'm just reminded of like, lions, of loyalty, of leadership. Also a little bit of logic, but I'm just seeing this more of being the fire, being the strength. I think I just wanted to read one of the little passages, and I wanted to really read it from the Golden Solar Dragon. So here we are. The Golden Solar Dragon, who has come to you now, is asking you to balance your life, listen to your inner wisdom, and become a leader. Dare to speak your spiritual truth. Hold the vision of a 5th dimensional world. Protect those who are less capable than you are. With the support and guidance of this dragon, you can be a living example to many people. When you aspire to be a wise spiritual leader, remember that true masculine power, used with wisdom, helps you and those around you to feel safe. Spend a little time each day focusing on or imagining The sun shining onto your third eye and sends the light codes that the golden solar dragons are directing towards you. So, again, even in this card, the green gold dragon of Sirius, of coming into emotional knowledge, of receiving emotional knowledge, even the way that he holds the key. I think of Chiron even here. I think of the fact we have Chiron in Aries, and we actually have a retrograde, Chiron going retrograde next week. I have to do a little video on that. But we also have Chiron going into retrograde of the, the perpetual wound, or the wounded healer, as many refer to it as. And so, just reflecting back on these cards of us really being activated, a lot of us being activated in these ways, and where we start to realize the way that we've been doing things, or the way that we've been told to do things, is just so not even just false, but it's shallow, and it's not the true access of our power. It's not the true acknowledgement of our power. And not just that, but it's where we may see that actually it's us giving our power away. That the people that are so powerful are powerful only because we allowed them to be. Because we said so. Because they said so, and we just kind of agreed. I don't even mean that in a sense of like people have just... But you know what I mean. Like where we start to really see that it's not... People don't have power because like they are greater than us, or they're smarter than us, or things like that. It's not even like that. And we see that even if we want to talk about money. We see it's not necessarily people that work the hardest that have the most money. And so I feel like we're just starting to really come into our spiritual truths. Not just acknowledging them, but accepting them, and maybe being vocal about it and living that truth. To where it inspires other people just by seeing you. So, I'm gonna end that there. I hope that resonated. I know that this was a bit long, not even just a bit long, it was long, but I'm definitely wanting to just incorporate, I guess, a little bit more astrology. Again, as I've mentioned, I don't really consider myself a professional or anything like that, but I definitely like to consider myself someone who can see patterns in things. And so I just wanted to acknowledge, certain patterns that I've seen in the astrology of this full moon. So I hope that all made sense. I hope that this resonated. I want to say thank you so much if you did watch this all the way through. So I'm so appreciative for that, and just appreciative for all of those liking, commenting, subscribing, all of that amazing stuff. So you can stay tuned for the weekly forecast that should be coming out tomorrow. Just really getting on a schedule. This week has been really intense. Very much so for myself, personally and emotionally. So I've just been really trying to make sure I'm not like working in less than optimal conditions as far as doing readings and stuff. So this did get out a little bit later than I would have liked to, but better late than never. I'm still wanting to get my summer solstice video out. It's just sitting on a memory card. I have no idea what to do, but I really would like to get that out just to have it out there. And yeah, check out the daily videos. I do not have a video for Friday, June the 29th. Just took a me day, and so I'll be back on it tomorrow. Actually, follow Instagram, which is where I'm actually wanting to move the dailies, starting to bring those more to the Instagram so that I can actually put more of my energy into the weeklies and into the like the full and new moon videos. Just really spend more time putting effort into those, because the dailies actually do take quite a bit of effort. So just look forward to that. I'm still working out how I'm going to have that all figured out. But just stay tuned. Follow my Instagram just in case
because that's usually where you can find updates on everything, since I don't have the community section on my YouTube yet. So I'm waiting for them to send that to me, or, you know, roll that out to the rest of the users, so we're able to actually keep you guys a little bit better updated. But otherwise, thank you so much. I hope you have a wonderful weekend, and I hope that this not only reaches you well, but that you're able to take some bit of insight or guidance from this. So until next time, I will see you then. Bye.